her preference should be quantitative. Okay? So next week, go to the other venue, not here. Okay? And I will teach another cohort. Is that a problem? No? I suppose you have taken a copy of the lecture reference. Now, this lecture reference, be honest, is designed for my research methodology course lasting for 33 hours. I have 33 hours to teach a single course in the other institution for research methodology training for my social sciences students. But here, I just have 2 hours. 33 hours now decreased to 2 hours. So it is basically impossible for me to cover all these stuffs. And you may notice that I have got 7 pages, okay, in this set of workshop reference. And of course, I would not go through them word by word, sentence by sentence. I will try to highlight some of the important dimensions and at the same time give you as much information and as much examples as possible to allow you some important points of the research methodology and your research design. Okay? Yeah. There are 7 pages. I will focus on several sessions. First of all, what is research? What is research? And later, I will talk about the research process in page 2 to 3. And then, the most important part, that is research ethics. You know, we are civilized people. As a researcher, we have to abide by some kind of rules and regulation to conduct our study. This is also a kind of legislation, but not the legislation promulgated by the authority, but the legislation, the norms, in which we all work out, and we have to abide by it. Otherwise, you know, if you do not abide by this kind of norms and practices in research, you may be penalized, you know, by the school authority, research ethics. And lastly, I will provide you some examples, real example, for designing your own research question, which is in page 6. There are some kind of words, italic words. I provide you a real example, but a kind of mock example. And then I hope that you may get some ideas to formulate your research question. Okay, let us start by this. What is research? I don't know whether you consider yourself as a good researcher. But I remember a very important point in which my students, my senior students, and my parents always remind me from time to time, that is, if you want to make a smart decision, you have to get as much information as possible. I don't know whether you fully agree with me or not, but before you make an important decision, if you want to make it smarter, try to get the relevant information so as to facilitate you to make the correct judgment and decision. Okay, this is very, very abstract. Let me put it into the real context of you. I don't know why you decide to select this course. I remember in my Year 1 study, a lot of the senior students told me that, Lawrence, please try to get as much information as possible, and then try to get rid of some of the potential problematic courses. What do you mean? Try to not enroll yourself into some kind of killing professors. You're curious. You know what is curious? It's a kind of alias. That means who is very demanding. You know? Some of the courses should be avoided because they are very boring. Cannot learn anything. Okay? At the same time, Lawrence, this course will be good, the professor is great, but he will not give you good grades. Some of the courses are good, but this professor would be highly disciplined. If you're late for 5 minutes, you will be rejected to come in the room. So that depends on the information you have gathered and make the accurate judgment and then try to select the courses to formulate the combination in which you feel comfortable and suit your style. You know, I don't know whether it is also the case in your campus, in your program. I know that this course is compulsory, so you have to choose it. But in some of the cases, the course may not be compulsory and you would have your own judgment, your preferences, and based on the information you have gathered, and make a decision. Is it correct? Okay. But, you know, this kind of data collection or information collection process is very important, but some of you may not know how to collect the information and make the wrong judgment, wrong trust towards some of the people who should not be trusted. You know, I have heard that this course is good, but the informant who provides you the information basically wrongly guide you by her sentimental feeling. It's wrong. Okay? So my impression is that being a smart student, you know, you have to choose. You have to get as much information as possible so as to facilitate you to make the right decision. Alternatively, it is in the real world, you know, you may also come across with this kind of very, very dilemma situation, and you have to rely on your information, rely on your knowledge to make the correct judgment, okay, in some of the important lifetime decisions. Just like here. You know, there are some of the examples. First of all, I don't know whether you are a smart investor. Now you are just a student, I don't think that you would have a lot of money for investment. But once you have got some kind of savings, you would like to make investment, what would you believe? Okay, how would you invest your savings, your assets? Okay, I would like to have property speculation, 炒樓. Okay, that's fine. I would like to invest some into the stock market. Okay, that's fine. But what kind of tips you may get, and what kind of tip you would like to get? I just listen to Uncle Six. So, okay, and then based on his recommendation, I will try to make my investment. That's okay. But do you really think his tips is totally justified and very, very, very effective? I don't know. Okay. If you like, you may try to conduct your own study, try to survey the stock market, reading the newspapers, and then try to make use of the information you have got and make your judgment and try to decide which stocks you would like to invest in. You know, this is a kind of market research. Second, I just mentioned survey the subject inquiry. Some students told me that they do not realize this professor is demanding. Some students told me that as well. Lawrence, I don't know that you are so demanding in terms of interactions in the tutorials. But if you read through the subject document, if you read through the syllabus, if you have heard from your peers that Lawrence is this kind of lecturer, you know, you should know his methods. You know, this is a kind of requirement. And of course, you know, you can get the information and facilitate you to decide whether you enroll yourself. Thirdly, listening to the traffic condition before you decide whether you take the school coaches or take the 74 King from Apple Market, or try to catch a taxi to find you get it, you know, try to take a look at the traffic condition. This is a kind of research. Of course, this is kind of very small scale, very layman research. My parents basically know nothing about research, but I noticed that they are very smart in some aspect. Like for a particular commodity, whether welcome or park and shop is cheaper, you know. And at the same time, they would allow me to try to buy something after 7 o'clock in a specific outlet of welcome. They are very smart because they get a lot of information and at the same time know that in which time, for which commodity, in which outlet they can get or you can get the so-called discount. This is kind of research. Of course, their research may not be totally scientific. This is a very layman research. In the real context, I can say that for a professional, being a teacher, I have to know your preference, I have to know your profile, I have to know your feedback, try to improve myself and make use of this kind of information to work out a corresponding strategy to improve my teaching effectiveness. This is research. Okay. Now, these are all the layman examples. But they are all a little bit different from your academic research. Because academic research, unlike those I just mentioned, you know, those of the research, those of so-called research I have mentioned are a little bit layman. They are not very scientific, not very systematic, just heard some information from somebody. But in our academic research, I can say that this is more systematic. This is more controlled. Systematic means that you have to go through some of the important steps for your academic studies. Like, before you decide for your research question, you should have a good eyes. Okay, try to observe what has happened surrounding you, and what are the interesting dimensions we are underexplored and we would like to verify. Okay, and at the same time, you have to read. I can say that there is no smart researcher who do not read at all. I know that most of the students may not like to read, but you know, if you do not have this habit, I can say that you cannot be a very, very smart researcher, because most of the important knowledge, you know, must be got from reading. Reading doesn't mean that reading the Apple Daily, Oriental Daily only, but also the academic journals, scholarly articles, and these are all including the finding, the discourse after a serious analysis. Okay? And in some research, it involves the controlling process. Let me give you an example. There are some kind of research called experimental research. Experiment. Let me divide all of them into two groups. I wonder that, I have heard that people who regularly take vitamin C tablet in the morning would be smart. Okay, I have heard that. I don't know whether it is right. So I would like to divide you into two groups, and let's try to feed some of the vitamin C tablet to group A in every morning and ask them to take it. For the group B, no, you do not need to take it. And after a month, let me try to find out whether you are smarter than that of that group. You know, this is the kind of control. You know, that is trying to make use of the control of some variable or one variable, that is vitamin C in every morning, so as to highlight the possible differences. You know, this is very common in experimental research. If it is not an experimental research, the word control means there are some kind of restriction and some kind of process you have to go through. Except for the literature review, you have to also define what are the variables that may shape the outcome. Okay, I will give you more examples later. You know, you have to take care of some kind of very necessary and inevitable steps to go through your academic research. Unlike this, you know, unlike that kind of researchers, local researchers, they need not to go through this kind of very stringent and very strict process. But for a researcher in the academic field, you have to. Now, you are going to have your poster presentation. You are going to have your own research topic. This is a kind of academic research. That means this is a process which requires systematic and controlled steps. Okay? But what are they? I will let you know more later. Okay. But what is the purpose of our research? I just mentioned that, trying to get more knowledges. And at the same time, researchers may have different means to collect their data. Like, I'm a researcher who likes to interact with people. Of course, I would like to interview people, interview the informant, and ask them to provide some of their feedback, some of their feeling, recall some of their history, and then try to advance my writing. Okay? This is very common. But some of the researchers, I can say that they do not like to talk with people. And at the same time, they can still get a lot of information even they do not talk to the other people. How can they do so? On. Sorry? Read literature, right? Content analysis. Reading. Yes? Any more? Observation. Make use of their eyes to try to observe what has happened. Okay, any more? Any more? Observation? Read the literature. Provide survey, right? A lot of students claim that research means survey. Well, of course, it is wrong. But you know, in our society, it's quite common that I design a survey questionnaire and then ask you to fill in, and then try to analyze the data and find out the findings, and then try to report it to the public. I need not to have any kind of personal interaction with you at all. You know, survey. Okay, these are all the methods for you, for the researcher to get the information, but for each method, it would have their relative strengths and weaknesses. Okay, let me give you 7 examples. First of all, I have to recall some of my course-mates in my M studies. One of my course-mates, she does not like to conduct research by interacting with people. She would like to make use of numbers. Okay? So, her research topic at that time is trying to take a look to the people's life in the occupation period of Hong Kong. You know when was the occupation period of Hong Kong? 1941 to 1945. You know, Japanese occupation. She designed some kind of questionnaire and asked her informant to provide their feedback, and then she would like to make use of this information to reconstruct the story of Hong Kong during the occupation period. Initially, when I knew her strategy, I said that, lady, I think that you would fail. You would fail for the study very easily. Of course, she did not believe it. And later on, she dropped out and home. Do you know why? Occupation period, 1941 to 1945. She designed some questionnaires and asked her potential informant to fill in. Try to reconstruct the Hong Kong history stories. She failed. Why? Okay.
At this time, maybe the people in that period does not have opportunity to study. They are
yeah. And let me ask you, I would like to study your primary school behavior and feeling. Would you mind to fill in the questionnaire which asks you the question like this? What did you feel about your Form 5 study? What do you feel about your Form 1 study? How many friends do you have in your primary 5? You know, I think the time lag, in addition to so-called illiteracy, you know, basically prevent the informants to provide you accurate information. Basically prevent you to provide accurate information, and it's quite harsh. The time lag, as well as the education standard, basically would prevent informants to provide accurate information, and it's quite harsh if you urge your informant to recall her or his memories 50 years ago. Remember, all the informants that passed through the occupation period should be about 60s. It's meaningless for her to ask me because I am very young. I was very young at that time, sorry. But you know, she has to ask some people who cannot effectively express themselves, or even they cannot have very accurate description towards their memory, and then try to quantify their memory in terms of figures. Worst is 5, good is 1. What do you think about the occupation period in Hong Kong? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What do you think? You know, this kind of method may not be totally valid. You know, so I think the best way for her is to make use of qualitative method. Okay, this is one of the examples. The other example, you know, I just said that, oh, we have to make use of different means to collect the knowledge, collect the information. But some of the research are quite sensitive, and it involves ethical problems, in which I will address very, very soon. It's turned to me, you know. Several years ago, I have a research project which is about one woman bathroom in Hong Kong. You know what is one woman bathroom? Yeah. Sorry, it's a little bit sensitive, but it involves no pornographic stuff. So don't worry. I and my teacher would like to conduct a study about the police of the one woman bathroom in Hong Kong. But it comes to some kind of problem afterwards. Even we got the research fund. What kind of problem you can expect for our study? We would like to make use of qualitative method. Not quantitative. I would not ask the prostitute, the sex workers, okay, to fill in the questionnaire. What may be the problem? What may be the problem, students? Right? Again, What is the problem? What are the potential problems? The sex worker, they decline to be interviewed. Okay, of course. How come you would like to be interviewed? Any more? Any more? Now, don't think that this is quite distant from you, you know. As a researcher, even as a student, I asked you to collect some kind of information and said that, that's okay. And eventually you find that, oh, it's not so easy as we expect. Any more? Let me tell you, we cannot hire research assistants so easily. First of all, we cannot hire female research assistant and ask her to go to Portland Street. Because I just wonder, they would be a big problem. I just wonder their personal safety. And at the same time, if we hire male research assistant, the point you just mentioned is also very important. That is, how can we effectively get the information from the stakeholders, okay? Those people who got against the building and then try to solicit business, you know. I am a researcher from Hong Kong, I would like to interview you. What are you doing? Are you a policeman, plain clothes? And at the same time, I would like to interview you. I do not want to buy service. I just want to interview you for research purposes. Okay, can you pay me? Eventually, if I pay you, how can I claim back my expense? I just want to buy the service from the sex worker. It's immoral, you know. Give them money and then get back the information is a little bit controversial. Okay? And at the same time, you know, some of the people would refuse to be studied not because they do not want to get the money, but the point is, even I pay them, they are quite reluctant to provide their personal confidential information because some of them are the overstayers. You know, they are not eligible to work in Hong Kong. They just wonder that we are policemen. Of course, I do not look like a policeman. You know, now, these are the dimensions and dilemma we face. And afterwards, of course, we successfully get some kind of information, but just observe the pattern. And later on, a lot of the peers laugh at us. Lawrence, what are the methods you have used? Is it participant observation? I said, no, I just had an observation. But anyway, this is kidding. But you know, some of the research may not be easily manipulated, and of course the methods you use would be very, very crucial. Okay? The first one, my friend, my coursemate, want to make use of quantitative. So said that quantitative is good, it should be more scientific, but at the same time, your elders, your informants cannot effectively express themselves. For my research, you know, I run into the problem of whether I should pay them, and at the same time, how can I secure the safety of my informant as well as myself? If I have research assistant, how can I protect them? Okay, I still have the third one, which is about one of my friends who studied education psychology. She would like to study the behavior of the infants from 1 year old to 5 years old, and study that with a mental part. I asked her, what is the method you are going to use? She said, interviews. Interviews. How can you interview an infant who is just 1 year old? Okay, I think that she's keen. But she said that I'm serious. But I asked her, how can you effectively communicate with the infants? She said that I can observe their murmuring, I can observe their body gesture. I said, how can you effectively capture the body gesture and then turn this kind of non-verbal expression into some kind of very accurate description of their behavior? She can't. And then eventually, she said that she met some kind of setback in her probation examination. You know, so research methods is really important. Now, for your own research, you know, I do not think that you would touch this kind of very sensitive agenda. But at the same time, if you involve some kind of subjects who cannot effectively express themselves, like children, like elders, like mentally ill people, you know, you have to be extremely careful. Okay? If you may purge the well-being of the artist, you have to be extremely careful. Now, I have also the fourth case. That is one of my colleagues who conducted a study about people's judgment towards the governing elite. That means how would you assess Levi Leung in Hong Kong, you know? But my colleague would like to cross the border and go to Shenzhen and ask some of the informants to assess their leaders, and at the same time ask for their perspective towards some of the very controversial agenda in mainland China, like reform. I warn him, you know, you must be very careful, because if you accidentally disclose the detail of your informants, I don't know what would happen, and you harm the interest of people. Of course, you do not have a problem. And the worst scenario is that you cannot go back to mainland. But for them, so I can say that you have to protect the safety of the informants. And for your project, for your research proposal, I do not think that you would involve a lot of very sensitive figures and so on and so forth. But don't try to put your informant at risk. Let me just provide you an example. You would like to conduct a study. Which professor you hate most? Boy, what would you think, Lawrence? Later on, this data, this finding, disclosed to me accidentally, and of course, you may be wrong. Of course, I'm a very fair person. I would not want to be appeased and take any kind of revenge, you know. But you know, you have to protect your information. This is one of the golden rules. But anyway, we have different means to get the data, but reading should not be ignored. Reading doesn't mean reading the Apple Daily or Oriental Daily and those three newspapers. I know that most of the students like reading, but only for the entertainment news and some kind of sports news, but not the international or local issues with deep analysis. I can say that reading newspaper is just one of the means. Just like you cannot just rely on Wikipedia, Answer.com to fabricate your own argument. You have to read some kind of scholarly articles and scholarly report. You know? And at the same time, our library has provided you the database, you know, in which you can get access to. Vice News, Vancouver, you know, these include information published in every day, you know. Seeking the authorities, of course, I consider myself as one of the people that may provide you some of the suggestions. You may also seek the authorities. You may also seek the opinions of some of the other professors. Okay? I just mentioned that as an academic research, apart from this, it is more systematic and controlled. Now, there are some steps that may allow you to have more thorough understanding for research process. But research is a process. That means it is going through some kind of steps in which you cannot skip that. Okay? First of all, formulation. Formulation of the research question is really important. Some of the students are very ambitious. They would like to conduct research which has far-reaching impact. But the point is, they just have 3 months. They just have 1 to 2 researchers. That means they are hosting. In one of the institutions I taught, the group of students told me that I would like to conduct research about the economic development of Macau SAR. This is a giant research topic. I think that if your research output is good, I think that the Macau SAR government would hire you immediately. But the point is, you just have 3 months. Make it specific. Make it under your capacity. For example, if your research topic is about, I would like to investigate the perspective of citizenship among the HKIED students. Yeah, you can do so. I can give you 3 years. You know, it is good. So try to control your research topic into some kind of researchable question. Some of the questions cannot be researchable. Another group of students I come across, they said that I would like to set a research question like this. Is God really a God? Is God really a God? 上帝係究竟係誰? This is very philosophical, but we cannot go through the social sciences research process to prove that whether God is a God. It cannot be proven. God is something very spiritual. If you believe it, don't ask. Okay? But it cannot be proven by figures. What is your perception? Eventually I said that, we can verify that it's God. Some of the value-laden questions, some of the spiritual, philosophical questions cannot be solved by social sciences courses. Okay? And formulating questions, planning, collecting data. Now, one more point I have to remind you that is, from time to time, I was told by students that they do not have ideas on research topic. 唔知做乜 research 好啊? Is it common among you? Is it common? Lawrence, I would like to work harder for your subject, but I do not have any ideas about the research topic. I can say that research topic is everywhere surrounding you. You know, you can have a lot of ideas, and if you are observative, if you are committed, you will have a lot of research ideas. For example, first of all, how come a lot of students in my class would fall into a slip? This is kind of research question. Second, how come my student would like to skip my classes at 8:30? How come my student in the classroom are mainly the female students? Why? Why? There may be some kind of rationale behind, some kind of reason behind it. Of course, this is research. Okay. In the campus life, of course, there are some kind of very interesting observations. Some students told me that they would like to conduct a research about the correlation between GPA and hostel membership. 住康嘅會唔會 GPA 高啲? Some students told me that whether 上莊 being the cabinet member of student society would affect their academic behavior. Of course, this is very layman, but at the same time very interesting. It doesn't mean that you can follow that footstep because you have your own courses, you know. For my student in the citizenship, your research topic must be related to citizenship. You cannot study the correlation between whole life and activism. You know? Okay, but anyway, research topic can be explored by your surroundings. For our citizenship course, I can say that you may conduct some study about the legitimacy, the governance, some of the hot issues, terror traders, you know, the idea of nationality, what is law, legal, law and order, and then judicial reviews. These are the concepts I'm going to teach you very, very soon. Okay? Analyzing and interpreting the data. You know, once you get the data, you have to interpret the data. This is really important. If your interpretation is poor, if your interpretation is not very valid, I think that it may not be attractive and it may not be justified and accepted by the readers. Okay. Let me give you an example. Okay. If I find that most of you are absent from my class, you know, how can I interpret this phenomenon? I can say that because most of you are sick. But of course, this kind of interpretation may not be valid. It may be because of the other reason, you know. And of course, your interpretation must be justified and must be supplemented with several more examples and justification. Otherwise, the readers may not trust me. Okay. Next one. Discipline. I don't know whether you consider yourself as a disciplined person. Are you disciplined? Is it quite common for you to skip the 8:30 classes? Yes? Because you live in hospital. I don't know if it is correlated. But anyway, being a good researcher must be very disciplined. I can see that a lot of researchers, a lot of my colleagues, course-mates in the graduate school, they are more disciplined than that of me. Particularly those students from mainland China. They are very, very, very disciplined. They would show up at 7:30 in the morning. They would leave their office at 11:30 every day. But for me, I would ask them, let's go to have a tea. A cup of coffee, some kind of chat. I take a look on the TV. We will have a Champion League live broadcast match. They are very disciplined. And at the same time, they can have a very calm mind, you know, very patient and calm mind, and they would read through all the stuff, read a lot of stuff, and try to interpret the stuff very, very, very objective. You know, it is a kind of discipline. I can say that this is even more important if your study requires some of the specific time slot and specific circumstances. Now, I personally have a kind of experience. I have hired some kind of research assistants, student helpers, for me to conduct a project which is about student behavior in the campus. I have deployed some of the helpers to the main entrance of the university, and then try to ask them to observe the behavior of the people who come in and come out the campus in a specific time. Later on, I noticed that there are some helpers who cannot satisfactorily meet my target, just because of one reason. Because they cannot arrive in the scenario on time. I asked them to be on duty at 8:30 to 9:30. They arrived there at 9:30, and all the people, the sort of period I would like to look for has been gone. You know, it means nothing. Okay, Lawrence, I can submit a good work for you, but 3 years later, you know, it means nothing. So I can say that research needs discipline. And another aspect of discipline is not punctuality. It's about professionalism and ethics. You know, I just make use of the example that vitamin C, remember? But if it is not the case, it's about a kind of newly invented drugs for curing SARS. I do not know whether it is working. But at the same time, I also do not know that whether it will have side effects. Okay? Ask you to take part in this kind of examination. If you like to do so, I will give you $10,000. Of course, this is a little bit risky. You know? So that's why there has been some kind of arguments whether some of the drugs company make use of human beings to test the validity of the drugs immoral. Okay? And another example is that if your research involves somebody who cannot express themselves, I just mentioned this, and you know, you have to pay 100% or even 200% of extreme care because you may hurt your subjects. You know, you have to abide by some kind of moral standard. You cannot just make use of your own interpretation to violate the data. You know, it is unacceptable. Now, our census department has been under good criticism several weeks ago because some people find that the census officer, you know, the student helper hired by the census department during the census seems not fulfilling their duties, and they just try to write down some of the figures which is not got from the target residents, target families. You know, this behavior I think is totally unacceptable. It's immoral. But of course, they would have their own rationale. But as a teacher, I have to remind you, for your even mini research, don't try to make use of some kind of extra legal means to get your data. I do not use the word illegal, but extra legal. It is not advisable. Okay? And don't try to wrongly interpret or even provide a false set of data. You know, it is totally wrong. Of course, this is not a kind of infringement of legislation. No law in Hong Kong would punish those unethical researchers. Okay? But in the university, as an academia, you know, there are some kind of regulation that may penalize those unethical students researching. That is academic punishment. You know, they can expel you from the university if you patronize something or wrongly interpret or provide us wrong set of data. So you have to take care of this. Don't think that I'm just a small researcher, just a small student. It is nothing to do with us. You know, plagiarism. You know, plagiarism is a very serious academic offense. Okay, research this. Okay, is that a problem? Now you know what is research. What is the difference? What are the differences between layman research and academic research? Okay, and what are the dimensions you have to take care of? Now, if there is no problem, take a look to page 6. At the bottom of page 6. Now, At the bottom of page 6, it includes a section called research ethics. I just mentioned some of the important points by my illustration already. Now, there are some kind of words, some kind of dimension you have to pay extreme care. Like, of course, you should not involve any kind of discomfort, hazards, or risk to the respondents. Okay. Now, let me give you one of the examples now. That may be a little bit sensitive, but it involves, again, no pornographic stuff. But please be open-minded. I have a friend who worked for a market research company several years ago. In one of the scenarios, she told me that she just conducted an interesting study. I said, how interesting it is? Oh, it is a study about the sexual activities of Hong Kong people. Okay, I don't know whether you have heard this kind of so-called market research result. Her company worked for a condom company. That is, trying to investigate the sexual behavior of the Hong Kong people. I immediately asked her, I did not laugh, of course. I asked her, what were the methods you used to conduct your research and get the result? Oh, very simple. We stopped somebody in the street and then try to ask them their activities. And at the same time, we would cold call and give some calls to the respondents and then try to ask them to describe their behavior. I said, how come, this is totally invalid. And eventually, it released some kind of result, and of course the Apple Daily or Randall Daily will try to manipulate them and then try to exaggerate the situation. I can say that these two methods basically impossible to get the valid data. Now that's emergent. Now for the gentlemen, from time to time, if you walk through in Mong Kok areas, 行人專用區 pedestrian zone, you may be stopped by some of the pretty ladies. They ask you to fill in the questionnaires. Do you think that you would provide them accurate data? They were hired by those insurance companies. That's emergent for the gentlemen. If you are stopped by a so-called market researcher, how often do you have sexual activities? Do you think that you are offended? If you take it seriously, you may be shocked. If you do not take it seriously, many times. Yes. And at the same time, if you receive a call, if you're a lady, receive a call, how often do you have? Is it an offense? Is it a kind of telephone fraud or nuisance? I don't know. But anyway, I personally do not trust that kind of survey. Because of two reasons. Because first of all, the invalidate research method. Invalid. I don't think it can ensure the accuracy of the data. Second, it would cause some kind of discomfort for those people who would like to seriously answer your question. No company would try to make use of this. And of course, her research is not a kind of research, it's a kind of marketing. Of course. I would not disclose the detail about this. But I think that most of the researchers outside the academic institute may not be so professional. They try to manipulate research as a means to get the data in which that may favor them to do something. Just like those public opinion polls before the election, Some of the political parties would like to manipulate this and then try to do something for the sake of themselves. Okay? This is research ethics. And you or we should not harm the informant. Second, we have to balance the freedom between the researcher and the informants. Now, it's quite common that the researchers would like to videotape or audio tape to record the course of the interview. But most of the informants, let me assure you, they may not want to be taped. And even they would like to be taped, they would be a little bit discomfort if they notice that it is in recording. Is it the case? Just like the case right now, And you have to balance the interest. For some of the sensitive researchers, you have to strike for their consent and at the same time guarantee that this information will not be leaked out to the third parties. For some of the research, we cannot audio tape or videotape. Now, let me provide you one example. I have a chance based on the referral of one of the very senior professor to interview a very, very famous top-level senior bureaucrat in the colonial Hong Kong government. And he just required me to follow several steps before I can walk into his premise and conduct the interview. First of all, provide him the question guide. Second, cannot record the whole process at the interview. I sent him the question, and he said I would just answer the question in which I feel comfortable and approve you to ask. Second, you cannot mark down any words and record any process, any words from me during the interview. Do you agree? He said yes. Okay. And later on, I provide him, fax him the questions. He tries to revise the wording, and then send it back. You can just ask this, and at the same time, you cannot take any kind of notes through the process. I still remember this is a very tough process. The interview lasts for 1.5 hours. The first task I do after leaving his premise, is try to dictate all the stuff on my page. You know? Of course, we have to strike a balance. You know? Of course, my preference is trying to record it and then mark down all the stuff, and it's better for me to take a picture. He rejected it because he is very, very senior. Okay? But of course, if some people ask you to do this kind of stuff, if he or she is not senior, try to disregard them. You know? But you have to respect their preference. Okay? If you would like to interview me, I said, okay, no tape, no record, no photo. You may consider whether it is worthy for you to interview me. You know, it's very tough. But in general circumstances, we should guarantee our informant not to disclose interview details to the parties. Okay? And next, there is no law governing the ethical exercise of the researchers. It is not a kind of offense. I like 黃子華. Remember I told you, 黃子華成日講一句犯法啦，係嘛？粉食即係犯法啦。It is not a kind of offense if you do not abide by these kind of so-called norms. But in the academic world, you know, people will look you down. Okay, as a teacher, I will fail you if you do not abide by some of the so-called norms in academic research. Now, next page. Four more items you have to take care of in the bullet points. First of all, self-determination. The informants may be able and she is allowed to drop out whenever for your study. If you would like to get the help from some students, some of your peers, try to interview them, they are free to join or withdraw whenever. It's quite common because in some of the projects, my student would like to organize some focus groups. Okay, of course, in next round, if possible, I will let you know more about what is focus group actually. Organize a focus group and ask the peers to join it. But if they would not like to join it, don't make it compulsory, and don't try to threaten them to join the focus group. You know, it is useless and it is unethical. By the same token, I cannot make use of my power, coerciveness to urge you to join some of the focus group for my own research. I cannot. You know, if you do not attend them, you know, you would be penalized. Your marks would be deducted. You know, this is totally unethical. You cannot make use of this. Of course, you are not a teacher, but if you would like to invite your peers to join your focus group to be interviewed, try to work out some kind of consensus. Privacy, I just mentioned this term, you know, it's important, privacy. Freedom from harm, I just mentioned that already. And lastly, fair treatment. It should be fair. I don't know whether you have a chance to play a game called sociology game. Soci game, have you played it? You do not know what is soci game? You 玩過 soci game? in your old camp, usually the student society would arrange sociology game. It's a kind of simulated scenario. Do you know the meaning of this word? No? Okay. Have you played SimCity? SimCity doesn't mean similar city. SimCity means simulated city. Yes. Okay. 模擬數字經 means try to create some kind of mock simulated scenario and then ask the stakeholders, ask the participants to take up some of the position and try to think from that position and then try to give you more exposure and have reflection on your own life. Usually, if you're a sociology student, if you join the student society, camp, they would arrange social game. I still remember in some of the games, some of the participants would be arranged to take up a position. You are a prisoner, I am the officer. Okay, of course, I'm in charge of bullying, throughout the game. It would be happy for me, but it may not be happy for you. You may be bullied. Of course, it's just a game, but I don't know that whether you will be humbled. Your first attempt to join the student activities after entering the university is being a prisoner. It is very interesting, but of course, try to get avoidance from potential harm. Even you arrange some kind of interview research questions. This is of course a little bit distant from you, but one more scenario is that let's imagine if you are a social worker, if you would like to conduct a study about unpleasant child. It's unpleasant childhood. That is some kind of unpleasant, unhappy experience in your childhood era. If I interview you, if you have some kind of very unhappy memories, do you remember what has happened in your 4 years old? Do you like your mom? If I do not notice this, if I would like to get a lot of information, you have to be aware of her or his potential harm that may cause. There are some researchers who would like to take a look to the question of family violence and ask the victim to describe what has happened. What do you feel when you are beaten by your husband? It is not good. You have to be very, very serious. And at the same time, it doesn't mean that you cannot ask them this kind of question. But at the same time, please try to have proper arrangement, and particularly for the subjects who cannot effectively express themselves. Okay. Now, these are the background of research, and at the same time, what are the research ethics you have to abide by. Now, it moves to another very important dimension, that is, what is our research process. It has been an hour. Should we have a break? Okay, 10 minutes. 10 minutes. We will resume the lecture in 10 minutes.
喺度啊。